Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing an everyday makeup look. This is the type of look that I do when I am like going somewhere and I just need my makeup to look good. This ensemble of products work very well together, and I'll be taking you through the techniques that I use and why I make the choices with my makeup that I do. Let's get into it. Okay, so I zoomed you guys in so that you can see what I'm doing better, and I'm gonna start by just putting back my hair. I always like to do this because I just feel like it helps me get in the zone. I always start with my complexion first. I never used to be like that, but something just clicked one day and I realized that it made more sense for me. Right now all I have on is CeraVe moisturizing cream, and I have on the LYS lip treatment oil. So I love this NYX marshmallow primer. It's supposed to be slightly blurring. I'm not sure if I really noticed too much blurring, but I mean, it's just a good primer and it smells nice. I like to have a really slippy, like moisturized base. So I always start by doing that, and then I go in straight with foundation. My favorite foundation of all time is the Estee Lauder Double Wear Foundation. This bottle has seen better days. It's quite destroyed, but it's my favorite foundation. It's literally 2 years old. I should probably get a new one, but it's almost done and I know I'm gonna finish it up, so. I use the shade 3W 1.5 Fawn, and I just pour out a little bit on the back of my hand. I don't like to use too much foundation, especially this type of foundation that's like so full coverage and matte. And the reason that I use this foundation as my everyday foundation is I would rather use, that's like how much I use. I would rather use a foundation that is super full coverage and matte and sheer it out to my preference than have a foundation that is really sheer and dewy that I have to build up a lot. It just makes you look like you're wearing a lot of foundation, and I don't really like that look. So I make this foundation, this little bit of foundation, stretch really far, and I still have a lot on the back of my hand. I'm gonna take my beauty blender. I did my best to get this clean, but you know, it's a makeup sponge, it's gonna look dirty. So I'm just gonna start with the perimeters of my face. So I'm doing my forehead and then my chin. And I always do my nose next because this foundation dries really fast. I use a lot of pressure when I use my beauty blender. I'm not sure if that's like technically correct, but I really like push it in to my skin. And I do this for a minute. Like, I'm really working this into my skin. And honestly, there are still some areas where I would like more coverage, so I'm gonna go in with just a little bit more of the foundation. I'm just gonna go around my mouth where I have some more hyperpigmentation, and I'll take like a little bit more right here. So again, I like to work in small layers and small amounts so that I'm not overwhelming my skin with like a flood of product, and then it's really hard to blend out. I'd rather add little by little. I have normal to oily skin, so this foundation works perfectly for my skin type. If you have really dry skin, you are probably not going to like this foundation just because it is really matte and full coverage. But for me, it's like the perfect foundation. So it's very personal to your skin type. This shade range is also extensive, so I was easily able to find a shade match even though I have kind of a complex skin tone. I have an olive skin tone, and it can be really hard to find shade matches. But Estee Lauder is woke to olive skin tones, so I did not have too much trouble finding my shade. The next thing I do is I go in with this Bobbi Brown under eye corrector. This is very well loved. I have been through several of these. I think this is probably my 6th or 7th one. I've lost count, quite frankly, but this is the shade Peach, and I just take a good bit on my finger and I put this right under my eyes. I have really dark under eye circles, and I kind of need a corrector. If I just go in with concealer alone, my under eyes start to look gray because the concealer is not warm enough to cancel out discoloration under my eyes alone. But I don't like using really orangey concealer because when I blend it out, it's gonna eventually creep into the other areas of my face, and my skin tone is not very warm. Like, I don't have a lot of orange in my skin. And I also take it right into this innermost corner because that is also where I get a lot of darkness. And I'm not sure if you can tell on camera, but in real life, just the corrector alone makes such a difference. So after that, I go in with the Cover FX concealer. This is my second tube of this. I absolutely love this concealer. It's a really nice goldeny shade. It's not quite olive per se, but it's definitely golden enough to the point that I can get away with it. But I just take a little bit right here, and this is kind of the placement that I do for my concealer. That's it. And then I dip in one more time, and I really like the applicator of this. It makes it super easy to apply concealer. And then I'm going to do the same thing under this eye. And now I'm going to let my concealer sit. This is the only place I use concealer is under my eyes. But what I like to do is let the concealer dry down a little bit, because when I blend it out, it's going to have a lot more coverage because it's almost dried down and has become more tacky and sticky. So it's going to spread a lot further while maintaining the pigment of the actual concealer. In the meantime, I'm going to do my brows. I only use one thing in my eyebrows, and I absolutely love this brow gel. This is from Kosas. It's the Air Brow, and I use the shade Black. Oh, I just realized I forgot to tell you the name of this concealer. This is the Cover FX Power Play Concealer, and I use the shade G Medium 1. So back to brows. I love this brow gel. I will definitely be repurchasing this. It's kind of an all-in-one for me. I don't require too much hold in my eyebrows because I don't really go for a super laminated look where I need all of my hairs to stand up. I kind of just let them do their thing, and I get my eyebrows waxed so that they kind of just look maintained and I don't have to do too much with my actual brow products. But this brow product is phenomenal. It has just enough pigment to where it like makes a noticeable difference, but not too much to the point that it's like hard to use. And it's just everything I could ask for in a brow gel. So I still want to let my concealer dry down. I'm not done letting it like hang out there. So what I'm going to do in the meantime, I'm going to put some color in my crease. That way I can get my eye look set up. So I'm using the MOTD Seamless Sheer Blend brush. It looks like this. Any big fluffy blending brush will do. And to set up my crease, I'm using the NARS Laguna bronzer. I don't know if you can tell on camera, but I have a huge dent in this. It's just a mini size that came with a Sephora birthday gift one year, and I am absolutely in love with this bronzer. If you have olive skin, you will really like this shade, specifically the powder formula. I have one friend who always thinks that I am wearing eyeshadow even though I'm not. So I already kind of have pigmentation on my eyes, and I kind of play into that and use it to my advantage. I don't blank out my eyelids unless I'm doing like a really extravagant look where I need the colors to show up. This is a bit more natural and, you know, everyday friendly. It's a little more quick. So what I'm going to do is just take this brush and focus it right in the outer corner. And I'm going to place most of the product there. I don't want too much precision. It's meant to look more like a casual wash on the lid where you didn't try too hard, and, you know, it's almost like your natural pigmentation of your eyes kind of blending in with the shadow. Now I'm going in with any type of like one and done shadow. This shadow is not necessarily one and done because I just used something to set up my crease, but if you have a lighter skin tone than me, this definitely could be. It's called A Little Quarky, and it's by ColourPop. I don't typically use one shadow every single time I do my makeup. I have a bunch of singles, and I pretty much use a different one every time, but I really like this one. It's super neutral. It has a little bit of peachiness to it. It's a beautiful, beautiful shade. This looks really expensive on the eyes, but this shadow is like $6 or $7. Put it on with my finger, and I focus this mostly on my lid, and I'm going way in the inner corner, as close as I can get, and then kind of once all that color has been deposited on my mobile lid, I'm gonna use my finger to blend it up into the crease. And I'm just kind of honestly using my finger as a brush. Once I have that color down, I'm gonna go back in with the blending brush. I didn't pick up any extra product on here. It's just whatever was left from the last time I used it. And I'm just gonna feather over the edges again, just to make sure everything is nice and blended. And that is pretty much it for the eyeshadow. So now this concealer has dried down to the amount that I like my concealer to dry down to. So I'm going to go back in with my beauty blender, and I'm going to take the pointy side, and I'm just going to start to blend this out. And you see how much coverage it's giving me, and I didn't really put too much on. I mean, this is like not that much concealer for me, but I really think that this technique makes a huge difference. And I actually learned this technique from Jackie Aina here on YouTube. And it was life-changing, honestly, when I learned it. And if I have any extra concealer, I like to take it out to this edge to kind of clean up the ends of my eyeshadow and give that, like, you know, snatched look. So, and then I take kind of up in here where that little corner of darkness is. Corner of darkness, that sounds so morbid, but you know what I mean. That little shadowy area. And I'm gonna blend this out as well. Same thing. And again, I'm taking it to the outer corner. And if you ever feel like you have too much concealer, or, you know, the lines are a bit harsher than you would like, you can always go back in with this foundation side of your sponge to soften up any lines. I'm not going to set my concealer right away because I want to use a cream blush. So the cream blush I'm using is called Opening Night, and it's from R.E.M. Beauty. This is Ariana Grande's makeup line. It's just the most beautiful mauve. It's like a true mauve color. And this is super flattering on my olive skin. I'm not particularly sure why. I think it's because it's almost a little bit purple. I will never understand the hate that Ari got for her makeup line. Like, I guess she was not the most involved. It might have been a teeny bit cash grabby, but there are some hits from the line. So I just take a little bit on my finger. I take it right from the bullet, and I just kind of like swirl it around and really melt the product because I don't want it to like lift up my foundation. And this is a really pigmented blush, so I don't want to use too much. I'm going to take my beauty blender and just start blending it. And I like to keep my blush up pretty high by my cheekbones because I don't have too much volume in this area of my cheeks naturally unless I'm smiling. You can see that I have a little bit of a volume there, but that's only when I'm smiling, and I'm not smiling 24/7. Like when I'm talking, I'm not going to have that volume right here. So if I put my blush down here, it's going to drag my face down and it's going to look unnatural. So by keeping my blush placement up high, it highlights my bone structure more because the most volume I have in my cheeks is right here on the actual cheekbone. Like that's the part that sticks out the most. Even at a front view, that is the widest part of my face. So by putting the blush there, it really accentuates my bone structure, and I just think it's most flattering. You know, blush placement will obviously depend on your face shape and your preferences, but for me, I just love keeping my blush up high. And I'm also not really afraid to get my blush super close to my under eyes. I feel like it actually looks a bit more seamless that way. I'm not a fan of having a huge like line of demarcation between the blush and the eyeshadow. Okay, now that the blush is blended, I'm going to set my under eyes now. I use the shade Honey. They didn't always have this shade. They used to only have one shade called Translucent, but it worked, and I love the formula of the powder so much that I just used it, but Honey is definitely a better match for my skin tone. It has that golden quality that I'm looking for in powders. What I do is I just take my sponge, and with the concealer side, see this side has concealer, this side does not, so I'm going to use the side with concealer, and I'm going to blend out any of the creases that may have settled, and quickly I will dip my beauty blender into the sifter, and I actually press it into my palm once to kind of get off some of the extra product. And then I'm gonna shove this under my eye, and I kind of take it down here in this area because I get super oily there. And I'm also going to just kind of take it on the sides of my nose. And I'm basically baking, but I'm not using too much powder. I've always been a fan of baking. I know that it was more of a trend at one point in time, and then it kind of fell out of trend, but honestly for me, it's essential. I'm gonna blend out the creases on this side as well, taking the powder, and then I'm gonna press it in the palm of my hand to get rid of the excess, and then just press the powder in. And go on a little bit of the sides of my nose and down in this area right here. I also like to go right between my brows because I get super oily here for some reason, and I just find it really unflattering, especially in pictures. So while that sits there, I'm going to do my mascara. This is the Essence Lash Princess False Effect Mascara. This is the green tube. This is the only one that I like. And the brush looks like this. But I'm just going to apply this to my lashes. This is a moment of intense concentration. I'm going to do the other eye, and I don't re-dip the brush because there's a ton of mascara on here for both eyes. Before I do my lower lashes, I'm actually just going to set this brush down because I don't want to end up re-dipping for my lower lashes because that's just going to end up with too much product on the wand. So what I'm going to do is I still have this powder underneath my eyes, but instead of brushing it off with a brush, I'm going to actually press it further into my skin and kind of like, you know, just make it disappear with a sponge. I don't like brushing off the powder because I feel like when you do that, you actually end up brushing away some coverage. So now that I have the powder blended in, you might have noticed that my blush has been almost toned down because the powder area kind of went over the cream blush area. So what I'm going to do is go in with a powder blush now. And I love this blush from Essence. This is in the shade Befitting. This is a very similar shade to the Clinique Black Honey blush. And I'm just going to use a MAC 168 brush. It's just an angled brush. I'm really only applying the blush up here where the powder kind of toned down the color because there's still enough color down in this area. I'm just trying to get it right back up the top. So, and again, I'm not really afraid to kind of take it like almost right on my under eye. I feel like it looks really natural and it's a cute look. And then I'm going to take a little bit and just go on the bridge of my nose. And then I'm just going to take a look in my mirror and see if there are any areas where I feel like I need some more blush. I'm just adding a little bit more there and just kind of tweaking it until it gets even in my eyes. Take a little more here. Now I'm going to go in and finish my lower lashes, so I'm just going to put the teeniest bit on. And the only real purpose I have for putting mascara on my lower lashes is just to give them some color. I like them to be defined, but I don't want them to stick out. The last step is lips. So I have had this LYS lip treatment oil on for the duration of the video, and I always use some sort of like lip conditioning agent to get my lips prepped for whatever color I'm going to apply. My absolute favorite lip gloss of all time is the Clinique Black Honey Gloss. And before I used the gloss version of this, I used to use the lipstick version. I went through an entire tube of that and then I bought a second one. And when I was halfway through that tube, they launched the gloss version. Over the years, I've definitely become more inclined to a glossy lip, but even just up until a few years ago, I was really a lipstick person. But I cannot deny my love and affinity for this gloss. So yeah, this is what the applicator looks like. It's not, you know, those huge plushy doe foots that everyone loves these days, but it has a very teeny, almost hourglass appearance to it, but it's so precise that I don't even mind. And I'm just gonna layer this on top of the treatment. I'm not gonna wipe off the treatment because I almost like how the treatment kind of shears out the lip color, even though you can shear this out by itself. I like to have that balm underneath. And because this is so precise, it allows you to almost use it as a lip liner. And I rub the color like that, and then I just use the end to shape out my Cupid's bow. I zoomed you guys out for the end of the video, but I just realized that I forgot to do an essential step in my routine, which is the inner corner highlight. I'm going to take the MAC 233 brush, and it's just a flat shader brush. I am using this one specific shade from the mcgrath Mothership 5 palette. It's this shade right here. This is just my favorite highlight shade. Obviously, you don't have to use this one. It could be any highlighter. Plop it right down on top of the inner corner, and it just does the work for you. And I kind of take it and blend it into my lid because I want it to look very seamless and almost like it was just an extension of the eyeshadow itself. Same thing on the other eye, and I really like my inner corner highlight to be bright. That is it for this video. I hope you guys liked it, and if you guys would like to see any specific videos, please leave a request down in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and please consider subscribing. Thank you guys for watching, and I will talk to you in my next video.